Question number 6. How can I get some respect around here? Remember, we've been going through all of these questions that every culture has to ask. In point of fact, every culture has the necessity of categorizing people, putting them into appropriate functional categories. And with those functional categories comes, unfortunately, certain value assessments. Value is assigned to people according to the categories that they are in. And whenever you find that every culture in the world has to address this problem, you have what we call cultural universals. And cultural universals always fall around the category of categorizing people. So today, we're going to look at social systems, ways of categorizing people, and in the process, how inequality begins to manifest itself in cultural organizational systems. So today we're going to look at the problem of maintaining a stable society. We're going to look at types of social systems, including egalitarian societies, ranked societies, and stratified societies. And then we're going to look at the effects of globalization on societies, because something very, very powerful is happening as we are in greater contact with other cultures and as people are beginning to question the manner in which their former cultures organize themselves. I was walking down the street in Santa Ana. Santa Ana has been described as the poorest city in America. And here it is, just a few miles from Biola. I was walking down the street in Santa Ana. It is a largely Hispanic town. If you go to downtown Santa Ana on Saturday morning, you will think you are in Mexico City. All the signs are in Spanish. The street vendors are speaking Spanish. They are selling Spanish food, Spanish clothes, and everybody's wearing Spanish-type clothes, cowboy boots, cowboy hats, et cetera, et cetera. It's just like a little slice of Mexico. And somebody did something, and they were walking away. And this one person hollered back at him, "What's the matter with you? Do you think you're still in Mexico? We're in America now." And he was rebuking him for bringing ideas, practices, attitudes from Mexico up here. And Mexican-American culture is entirely different than Mexican culture. So we learn these new rules, and one of the things that a good social scientist does is learns to recognize what these are and can identify them. So we're looking again at our little chart, our little piece of pie. We're down here on the very bottom one, social systems. That's today's lecture and our next session. Well, let's talk about society. Every society has a system of what we call social institutions. Now, we're not talking here about Biola as an institution. We're not talking about a hospital being an institution. We're talking about social institutions. These are the larger categories of ways of pulling a society together. The goal of a social institution is, first of all, to teach or to reinforce shared values. And we do have these shared values. We're going to use these institutions to teach, to reinforce, and to carry out shared goals. And we're going to use these to engage in shared efforts. Now, what might some of these look like? Shared values? Well, we have a shared value in respect to freedom of religion. So we don't go around burning mosque. Oh, well, maybe we do that. But if we do, what is our response? Our response is to condemn those who ruined that shared value. When folk go into a cemetery and desecrate the graves of Israelis or Jews, we respond negatively. When we burn crosses on people's yards, we respond with outrage. Because we have these shared values, there are certain things that we do share, and we will try to reinforce them, even while we may show some latent support for them. And so we struggle with the whole issue of Islamophobia, how to figure out how to live with people who, in certain extreme cases, hate us and want to destroy us. But we do work on shared values. And one of the things that happens in a school is we try to teach you American values. As a matter of fact, have you ever been marked down late or marked down on your grade for a late paper? It's okay, you can nod yes, because well, I mark you down in this class for a late paper. Now, why should I mark you down for a late paper? It has absolutely nothing to do with your academic performance. It may be a brilliant paper. It may be the best paper in the whole class, but it's a day late and you get marked down for it. Is that fair? Yes, because in addition to teaching you how to do critical thinking, I'm teaching you two things. First of all, be on time. That's an American value. Secondly, I can't give you an extra day to do a paper that I don't grant to every other student. So I teach you fairness and justice. Do you realize how many extra things are written into your grades besides just academic performance? Have you ever been marked down for a paper that had too many corrections on it? Or not enough corrections? Oh, this is a great paper, but you've got spelling errors all over it, so I'm going to mark you off for your English. Is that fair? Well, presentation is very important. So we build all of these things into them. Now, frankly, I probably build in less than a lot of other classes, but we want you to be able to walk out of here as a model example of somebody who's got a higher education, a higher standard, more professional abilities and performances, and that you will be able to represent yourself well in whatever employment or academic situation you find yourself confronting after graduation. Shared values, shared goals. We are all going to try to develop some shared goals. What are those shared goals? That we will all be able to pursue happiness. It's in our Constitution. We're going to struggle for a better way of life that guarantees freedom for the pursuit of happiness. These are our shared goals. So we all want to work together to improve our lives, to make them richer, to make them more fulfilling. And we will do everything we can to work together. We will then have shared effort. We will band together as groups to establish shared efforts. Well, if these are the goal of every society, then what types of social institutions are we talking about? Well, first of all, schools. We've already talked about that a bit. We're going to be teaching values. We're going to be teaching goals. We're going to be teaching skills. One of the things we're going to do in schools is try to instill in you the capacity to be informed, responsible members of a democratic society. People who can read, who can listen, who can critically evaluate what the politicians are saying so that you can be responsible voters on election day. That's the only way America is going to work. So we're going to teach you how to establish your values, your goals, and give you the skills that will allow you to add to them. Then we're going to establish a form of government. And in our form of government, we are going to try to enforce shared behaviors. We're going to require you to maintain certain kinds of values and lifestyles that are comfortable for all of us. So we will set up certain kinds of rules and regulations. The city of Irvine, right down the freeway here, is the only, I know that's where you live, Arthur. That is the only city I know, but maybe there are others, where it is illegal to have weeds in your yard. That's right. You cannot have weeds in your yard in Irvine. My neighbor. So the weed police will be out. And there's a reason for it, because you see, weeds breed seeds, and seeds then spread to other people's lawns, and they want everybody to have nice manicured yards. So believe me, if you live in Irvine, you've got a gardener, and it's the gardener's responsibility to keep your yard weed free. Now, that's a community value. Now, we don't have those rules in Santa Ana, see? Which is closer to where I live. But we have other laws. Now, I happen to live just a few blocks off of the end of Disneyland, right? I walk around the corner, and I've left Anaheim, and I'm now walking in a couple of other cities, depending on which way I go. But we've got our well-being in my town depends upon all of the tourists who come to Disneyland. And we want it to be the happiest place on earth. So we have some regulations. You cannot have any strip joints or pornography stores within 1 mile radius of Disneyland. You want that kind of stuff, you don't come to the happiest place on earth, you know. So you leave Disneyland, and you could draw a circle of 1 mile all around, and that's where you find all of the strip clubs and the porn places, or adult places, you know. Now, we kind of like it that way. And one morning I walked out of my home, and I went to go for a jog, and I jogged out to Harbor Boulevard, and Disneyland is 2 blocks down that way. And I turned left, and here comes a young lady walking down the street with a very short skirt, very tight blouse. And It looks like she's just finished a hard night's work. And immediately my mind screamed out, yes, this is one of the ladies of the night. Sure enough, about 200 yards behind her, here's a police car, carefully following her. And I looked at her as she approached me, and I realized, I'm not saying hello. I'll find myself in jail. And she didn't look at me. And she knew she was being followed, and she knew she was in an area of Anaheim where streetwalkers are not allowed. She had wandered too close to Disneyland, and she was just hoping that before they stopped her, she could get to the corner, turn right, and head 2 blocks the other direction. We have very close enforcement of morality laws around Disneyland. We enforce shared behaviors through our government. Sometimes they're marginal, but we have them. Business will also reward shared efforts. Who makes the big bucks? The people who contribute to the highest standards of the well-being of the community. Look at the high-paying jobs. Doctors or people in the medical profession. We want the best doctors, and we're willing to pay them well to guarantee our physical well-being. Businessmen, because they will help to create jobs, create the wealth that we need to run our country. We pay politicians fairly well to maintain sound laws. We also pay lawyers to enforce the legal codes. Now, mechanics, not so great. Store vendors, not so great. Teachers, downright bad. But we pay the people who are going to help to build a strong society. So, these are the social institutions that every culture will have. A system of education, a system of governance, a system of economic well-being. A fourth one will be religion. And here in religion, we will find individuals who are going to be building spiritual motivation, high moral values, and a deep satisfaction for the soul that goes with religion. Now, when it comes to pastors, we may have to reward them with something quite different than money. Although it looks like a fair few of them have made a few bucks along the line. And we won't go into that right now. But these are the major institutions in every society. So what we have to do is we have to establish ways to promote all of these goals and values of our society, and then we have to be able to reward and punish people who violate those. So what do? Let's have, first of all, a system for rewarding desired behaviors. So how do we reward people who help to contribute to the well-being of our society? The first thing that we do is we'll reward them with wealth. So right now, CEOs of major corporations will make 400 times the salary of the employees that work for them, because they're going to make powerful decisions that are going to affect the well-being of hundreds of people. So we give people wealth, money, high salaries. we can give to them power. You can only do so much with money. A number of years ago, we were looking to revise our School of Business here at Biola, and we were going to come up with a new master's degree in business. And so we brought in some consultants to look, and one man that was brought in as a consultant, we asked him, you know, what would you advise? What kind of graduates do we need to turn out? What kind of programs should we offer? And so he gave his advice, and he spoke very candidly. But in one of the relaxing sessions, he said something that just struck me fascinating. He said, "I've made enough money. I don't want any more money. I don't know what I would do with more money." And I thought, wow. I get to the end of the month, and if I've got $1.50 left in my bank account, I feel great. I feel like it's a good month. I paid all my bills, and I still got $1.50 left over. Here's a guy who says, I don't want any more money. What I want to do is use my money to influence the world for something better. He said, that's why I'm doing this consultation for Biola, and I'm not charging you anything. I just want to see a quality program being developed here. You know what? This is why people go into politics. Poor people don't go into politics. They can't afford to go into politics. It's wealthy people who go into politics. They've got the money. They can get the money. They can invest it. And in return, they can come up with power. Power is a very strong motivator for human behaviors. Power. The ability to get people to do what you want them to do. The ability to get your way. The ability to assert your desires and your will upon other people. Power can be an elixir. So, once you've got money, the next route is to get power. Politics is one way to go. And you can assert that authority, and you can find great satisfaction in it. The third way that you can get rewarded is with prestige. Prestige is another way to reward people for being a good member of the community, of being a contributor to stable societies. Now, not all of these go together. Lawyers make big bucks. They've got a modicum of power, but prestige, well, the lawyer jokes are rampant. They don't have an awful lot of prestige. But 2 out of 3 is not bad. Wealth, power, prestige. Sometimes they will be very generous with one and very stingy with the others. For instance, school teachers. School teachers don't get super good salaries. As a matter of fact, they get, low middle class salaries. And they don't have an awful lot of power, apart from power over some kids in their classroom. But you know what? We reward teachers with prestige. Oh, you're a school teacher? Oh, that's a wonderful profession. That must be so fulfilling. We love teachers. See, a teacher is a very acceptable, occupation. You can walk into a room. Hi, my name's Doug. I'm a school teacher. Oh, so glad to meet you. Come on over here. Let's chat. Hi, my name's Doug. I'm a garbage collector. Oh yeah, fruit bowl's over there. We don't give the same prestige to, and yet it may be that the garbage collector is laughing his way to the bank because he's probably getting more money than the teacher is, you know. Sometimes it's not fair, but in point of fact, these are the three ways that we reward people. And I became very conscious of this one year when I came home from being on the mission field. We'd been there for 10 years, and we returned home, and we've been living in the bush, and we've been living on just a small stipend that the mission granted to us. And you know, I've got my almost every piece of clothing that I own stuffed into my suitcase, and I don't even have a suit to wear because you don't wear suits in the jungle. And but we arrived home and we got no place to stay, and so my brother took us into his home until we could get a few days to get settled in. And my brother happened to be the mayor of the city of Redondo Beach, which is no small town here in Southern California. My brother was not particularly wealthy, but he was making a fair bit of money. He had a business on the side because mayor was not a full-time position. He had an incredible amount of power as the mayor of the city and an awful lot of prestige. But I arrived home, and so here I am, my wife and I, 3 ragtag kids, and he was so happy, and he said, "Come on, let's go down to King Harbor and have a supper down on the pier at you know, very prestigious restaurant there on the pier at King Harbor." So he called up and he said, "Hi." He said, "I'd like reservations for 10. And we'll be there in about 30 minutes, and we'd like a table near the window." And the person on the other end said, "I'm sorry, but we're all booked tonight, and there are no tables available for you." And my brother said, "Could I please talk to the maitre d'?" So the maitre d' came on. "Yes, how can I help you?" "Hi, this is the Honorable David K. Hayward, Mayor of Redondo Beach. We'll be there in 30 minutes. We'd like a table near the window." "Yes, sir, Your Honor. We'll have a table ready for you." They moved people so that we could have a table next to the window. And oh, did they treat us with... You know what? I could get used to that lifestyle. Oh, could I ever. I like being somebody. You do a little name dropping. You know, prestige is great. Unfortunately, I didn't have that. You know, I'm just a kind of common, ordinary, street kind of guy. My dad was a mechanic. My mother was an assembler for Mattel Toy Company. You know, I was a nobody coming out of nowhere, and all of a sudden now I'm in the US of A, where wealth, power, and prestige are important. But something did happen along the way. You see, I went into the ministry and I got a reverend in front of my name. Now, we always hold reverends in high prestige. We may not pay them anything, but we give a lot of high prestige to reverends because they help to hold our community together. And then because I was apparently highly motivated and maybe just a little bit bright, I managed to get a doctor degree with my name. So I am now the Reverend Dr. Douglas Hayward. Whoa! You see, highly educated, high prestige. Religious worker, high prestige. Now, my son, you know, he's just a country boy. You know, he just swung down out of the trees when he came home to go to college, you know. Real Tarzan-like, you know. And so where does he decide to go to college? Well, that hoity-toity school up the road here called Westmont College, you know. And so he's at Westmont College, and we got to get him some decent clothes, so we bought him a few clothes, and we told him that white socks don't go with dark suits, and why not, Dad? But whatever, you know, we got him to fit in there after a while and gave him a little bit of clothes consciousness. And wouldn't you know, he fell in love with a young lady who was also going there. And she was from a very wealthy, well-to-do family from the San Francisco Bay Area who had made a considerable fortune in real estate. And here is this unlikely romance between a country boy, Jungle Jim they called him, and this woman from a high-income, high-prestige family in San Francisco. And they decided to get married. So, you know, we are happy for them, and they start planning the wedding. Well, the wedding now has to be in her church. I mean, that's American tradition, right? So her church is going to host it. Her church is the Episcopalian Church in San Francisco, actually one of the little suburbs, but the Episcopalian Church, because all of the rich go to Episcopalian churches, you know. It's only us commoners who go to Baptist churches. You knew that, didn't you? You know, commoners go to Baptist churches or Calvary chapels. Vineyard is, you know, that's really low middle class. Oh yeah, sociology of religion, Episcopalians are all up there with the wealthy category. So we're going to go to the Episcopalian Church, and as an honor to me, they asked me to do the ceremony because I'm, you know, licensed to marry and bury. And so, you know, Dad, would you perform the wedding? Okay, well, I can do that. So I got to write to the Episcopalian bishop to get permission as a Baptist pastor to marry my son and my new daughter-in-law in an Episcopalian church. And they were very gracious. Okay, you know, as long as you don't spit on the carpet, you can use our church to do the ceremony. Okay, so we're going to have the ceremony now in the Episcopalian church up there. And we got to get ready for the wedding. And my wife says, oh my goodness, I've got to have a dress that's befitting the mother of the groom that's going to match the dress of the mother of the bride. I did not know that weddings could be so complicated. I think my wife spent more on that dress. I know she spent more on that dress than we spent for our whole wedding when we got married 30 years ago. Whatever, go for it. And then she looked at me and she says, you got to have a new suit and new shoes. Your shoes look terrible. Okay, so I went down to JCPenney, bought me a brand new suit for $125. Nice, you know, brand new pair of shoes for $30. Hey, oh, you know, we Haywards clean up good. Then it comes time for the wedding planning. And as you know, the groom's family has to pay for the rehearsal dinner. And her family come to us and they say, Reverend Dr. Hayward. Oh, I love that. They always call me Reverend Doctor, see, because high prestige. Reverend Dr. Hayward, we hope you won't be insulted by this, but we've decided we'd like to hold the rehearsal dinner in the Yacht Club of San Francisco. Right. Yacht Club of San Francisco. You know, I mean, I was kind of thinking of, you know, Mimi's or something like that, you know, Red Robin even, you know. Yacht Club of San Francisco. You know, I'm seeing my credit card disappearing into the stratosphere. And then, here comes the next one. They say, and Reverend Dr. Hayward, we'd like not just the wedding party to be there, but we'd like all of our daughter's family to be able to come. And all of a sudden, the party has gone from 10 or 20 people to 50 or 60 people. I'm staggering at this point, but of course, you never show fear. Yeah, that's fine. And I'm blinking, I'm sweating, and then they throw the third thing at me. And Reverend Dr. Hayward, because this is our last grandchild, we'd like to pay for it all. So what was my response? Oh, I wouldn't think of it. No. I would, you know, fair share. No. You would do us an immense honor if you would let us pay for it all. This is our last chance to do something for our granddaughter. Oh, gollies, well, you know, I don't want to hurt any feelings here. Okay, if you want to do it, you know, we'll cave in. So we had the reception or the rehearsal party at the Yacht Club of San Francisco. I don't know what it cost, but it was more than I make in a year, I'll tell you. So we're there. And her granddaddy steps up to me. Oh, so glad to meet you, Reverend Dr. Hayward. We've heard so many good things about you. Yeah, wonderfully glad to hear that. And then comes the conversation. Dr. Hayward, have you ever played golf with the bishop up here in San Francisco? Golf with the bishop in San Francisco? I've never played golf in my life. It costs money to play golf. I played tennis on the school courtyard where it's free, you know? No, but I'm not about to say, are you kidding? I'm too poor to play golf. No, I don't. It's, well, you know, I don't believe I have. But you see, I live down in LA, so I don't often come up here to play golf. Oh, you would love playing golf. He's a really great man. Really? Does he play with Baptists? I didn't say that. The conversation went on and on and on about a world of which I had absolutely no knowledge. You know, because I'm a country boy. But they were granting me prestige. They were granting me access to their community, even though I did not have the wealth or even the power. But they assumed that that would go with the prestige that I had because I was the Reverend Doctor. Well, this is what we do in societies. We reward people. We reward people with whatever it takes to encourage them to continue to build a better society for us all. And every culture does this. Well, there are three ways that every culture will start or try to organize people in order to determine their power, their wealth, and their prestige. Egalitarian societies, ranked societies, and stratified societies. Let's take a look at those. Let's look at the egalitarian societies. Now, few societies are really, truly egalitarian, because every society will classify people according to their contributions to the society. But in egalitarian societies, wealth will be leveled. You will not have a major gap between the wealthy and the poor. Everybody lives at the same basic living standard. This was the way of life for the tribal people with whom I worked. If you had a potato, and there were 3 of you, you broke that one potato into 3 parts, everybody got a third of a potato. Nobody went hungry. If you had 6 potatoes and 3 people, everybody got 2 potatoes. Doesn't matter who grew them. Wealth was entirely leveled. Nobody was wealthier than anyone else. As a matter of fact, there was a very important study done by a European anthropologist, and he came and he looked at organizational leadership patterns among the Western Dani in a village about, maybe 50, 60 miles east of where I was working. And he looked at these, and he looked for every evidence of some kind of additional wealth or power or prestige that was given to a big man. And he collapsed in frustration and said, I cannot see where big men have any extra value or wealth than anybody else. As a matter of fact, people who are constantly identified by the community as big men seem to be even poorer than other people in the community. Indeed, because one of the guidelines for being a big man was you gave your wealth away generously. You impoverish yourself in order to be able to gain the ability to influence the community in the decisions that you wanted to make. So wealth is leveled. You could do this by virtue of the fact that land was not owned exclusively by anyone. Nobody could point to a piece of land and say, that's my property. I was just watching a TV program over the weekend on George Washington. When he married Martha, so that she became Martha Washington, he inherited her land holdings, 1,700 acres of Virginia prime property. That made him a wealthy man. You didn't have that kind of thing in Dani culture. The land was owned by the entire clan. It was village property. Nobody owned it exclusively. You shared food equally. Some of the most memorable times of my time on the mission field was when it came supper time and I was in the village. And I would sit in either a little cooking house or I would sit in a men's house, and all the food would be brought by the women and either cooked in the cooking house or distributed to the men's house, and it would be cooked there, and we would all share together. And whenever I ate, I was expected to share my food with everybody in the men's house. So we get up in the morning, and they're already cooking sweet potatoes for breakfast. Now, I love sweet potatoes. I do not like sweet potatoes for breakfast. So I would cook oatmeal. And I would have my little tin pot that I would bring in my camping outfit, and I would make a pot of oatmeal, and I would eat about half of it. And then I would pass my pot and a spoon to the guy to the left of me. Oh boy, a chance to eat white man's food. You know what? They didn't like oatmeal. I don't know. Did you eat a lot of bubur in Indonesia? Yeah, they've developed a taste for it. The Dani did not like oatmeal. Pass it to the next guy. He'd take a spoon, pass it to the next guy. Finally, they'd give it to some poor little kid and say, you finish it off. Poor kid, having to get that oatmeal down. But it was expected of me. And in the evenings, I would go into the village, and they would bring in sweet potatoes. They would bring in corn on the cob, and sweet potatoes and corn on the cob was great. But I really kind of liked a little something else with my sweet potatoes and corn on the cob. So I would bring a little can of Spam. I know you're making faces, but Spam is really not half bad. And I would, pop it out of the tin, and then I would slice it into little slices. I'd put it in a frying pan, and I'd heat it up on the stove, and I'd have 3 or 4 slices of Spam and sweet potatoes and corn on the cob. It was a good balanced meal. But the other half of the can, I'd have to slice it into little slices, put it in the frying pan, cook it, and then pass my frying pan around so that everybody could have a bite of my Spam. Oh, they thought they had died and gone to heaven. Meat, without even having to kill a pig. Hayward can bring meat in a tin can. Oh, when I came back to the United States, they said, send us a machine to be able to make canned meat. We'd love to have meat every day. They didn't realize that you got to be able to put something in those machines. But anyway, material goods. Material goods were very minimal. You don't have a lot of material goods. Everybody shares everything. Everybody has a minimum of stuff. You do not have a lot of extra stuff around. The Donnie knew that I had 3 pair of pants. When it came time for a conference, they would come and say, Hayward, you got 3 pair of pants. You can't wear them all during the conference. How about giving 2 pair away, loaning them to us, and then we'll give them back to you afterwards? Oh, what do I do now? Because we're expected to share. And the first thing that struck the Donnie when they left the Highlands, went with us out to the cities, they saw stores with racks full of clothes. They said, we can't, but we've never seen so many clothes hanging, unused, unclaimed. They said, we can't believe this abundance of goods, because everybody owned one of whatever they had. And if you did have extra, what did you do with it? You gave it away. You exchanged wealth for prestige. Well, what about power? Power. In an egalitarian society, power comes to you by way of influence. People would not think about making a decision without checking with one of the big men. They would not think about making a decision or engaging in a course of action without checking with the people who had the greatest influence. And you had to earn that influence. You had to earn the right to make a decision. You had to earn the right to speak. I went to a meeting. It was a meeting of church leaders. And there were maybe 300 people in the room, Christians from all over the Highlands. And I was sitting with the delegation from my valley. And it came time to debate or to discuss a certain issue that was there. And I stood up. And I stood up in the style of a spokesman for a group. I put my hand behind my back, and I grabbed my other hand like this. This is the spokesman style. And I said, in respect to this issue that we are discussing, I said, I would like to speak on behalf of those of us Donnie who are from the Mulia region. And everybody nodded in approval that I was speaking as the spokesman for all of these Donnies. But I'm not a Donnie. but I identified as a Donnie, and I identified as their spokesman. And I remember a couple of my missionary colleagues snickering over in the corner. Who is he to speak as if he were a Donnie? But I'd learned how to do the rules. I learned how to express myself. So I spoke, and as I spoke, I gave opportunity to turn back to the delegation, and they all nodded their approval. Yes, he is representing us. He's speaking for us, and we've granted him this position because he is articulate. And so they granted to me the prestige to speak on their behalf. And every other Donnie delegate from every other region accepted that role. It was only my missionary colleagues who struggled with taking that on because they had not yet earned that kind of prestige. You have to earn it. Now, I couldn't go back and do that now. I have lost that power and that prestige. I would have to go back and reinstate myself into that culture, having been absent for 20 years. Well, what happens if you are not contributing to the well-being of the culture? What happens if you are a screw-up? What happens if you do not help build the community, but only your own selfish ambitions? Well, in an egalitarian society, those people are sent into exile. They will actually pull you out, point bows and arrows at you, throw your stuff on the floor, on the ground in front of you, and say, start traveling. You no longer are welcome here. If you come back, we will shoot you. You will exile them. You will send them into the jungles to live on their own. Or you can physically attack them. You can burn their houses down. You can wage war on them. You can drive them out of your midst. You could beat them up. Or you could do whatever necessary to physically provoke them to give up their bad behaviors. Now, when you move into ranked societies could be very, very different than egalitarian societies. In ranked societies, what are we talking about when we talk about ranked societies? Here we're talking really about European civilizations, even Chinese and Asian civilizations, where you have noble classes, you have royal classes, you have middle classes, you have commoners. When it comes to the higher ranks, you have a fixed number of social positions. Now, I don't know how much you know about English history. Let me quickly review it. The Normans decided to attack England and to establish England as a colony of the Norman race. The Normans were actually Scandinavians who'd come down, lived on the coast of Normandy in France. They launched their attack onto England, and they came by the boatload, and they defeated the English in England. Then, every Norman soldier who helped to conquer England was granted land and estate and a title. They became known as Sir this or Sir that. They were allowed to have a coat of arms of their own. You could not become a Sir or a Lord without being given that position by the king. So it was a fixed number of social positions. Now, I don't know how many of you have ever been interested in going back to find out if you're from English background, if you have a coat of arms. We decided we would look up the Hayward coat of arms, and we found one. But you want to know something? The Hayward coat of arms does not belong to my family. The Hayward coat of arms was granted to just one family. That one family had done something exceptional for the king and for England, and was granted the right to be given the title of a lord and allowed to have a coat of arms. The rest of us Haywards, we're just all poor peasants. Now, a lot of folk have been named sir. The Beatles were granted lordship status. Somebody else just happened to get that title, a singer of some sort. Oh, well. Yeah. Well, there's the king can grant them, the queen can grant them, but there are a fixed number of social positions, and henceforth and forevermore they shall be known as Lord so-and-so. Now, do we have lords in America? One of the first things that we did when we established the Constitution was we outlawed the granting of lordships. We said America will not be a ranked society. We completely denied that. So they wanted to create, a lot of folk wanted to become lords in the United States. That was voted out. That remained only in England. Your rank was fixed by your birth, your lineage, or by royal decree. So if I was Lord Hayward, my son could inherit that status, or he could earn it by virtue of serving his country well. If you got it, it would give you certain social benefits and rewards. It would give you property. It would give you occupational status. A lot of lords were granted automatic positions in the military. All of the British military leaders were people of high social rank. They could be given positions in business. All of the prestigious, wealthy positions were open to people of the upper peerage. Folk in my category had to go to work for guilds and become tradesmen. So they got prestige. They got to ride in carriages. They got to have special clubs. And when they got on the Titanic, they didn't have to be down in the hold along with all of the Irish immigrants. They got to be in the upper levels. And do you remember did you see that movie, Titanic, where the woman says, "Where's the lifeboat for the upper class? Lady, you are about to freeze to death. Just get in a boat, any boat." No, she wanted first class, see. Well, they also have the power to rule. And this was one of the interesting things that happens in England. You have a House of Lords and a House of Commons. See? Prior to the establishment of a House of Commons, it was only the House of Lords that ruled. They usually had access to phenomenal amounts of wealth, usually passed down to them through inheritance, and the peasantry worked for their well-being. What happened if you did not follow the rules of ranked societies? Well, you would lose your rank. You could be stripped of it. You could be sent into exile. You could also lose power. And you would be denied the ability to continue the lifestyle that you had become accustomed.
Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Visit biola.edu to find out how Biola could make a difference in your life.